is 12:04 p.m. We will begin this work session of Lake County Board of County Commissioners. On the agenda today, we have an overall discussion of the larger budget picture, very general. We're gonna try and hammer down what the BOCC sees. Specific asks questions, what do we want to gain knowledge on? How do we improve our own understanding of the bigger budget picture? And I think my philosophy with these things a lot of times is hands-on. Just, start going through the motions, start doing the stuff first. And, I have a tendency to start, just right off the bat with oh, what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and what I come to find is a lot of times I'll be asking questions that I look back on later and I'm I should have waited a little bit to at least understand a little bit more about what I was doing before I started going down all these rabbit holes and trying to figure out a million different things. So what I'd like to do with this time right now is to figure out where we feel like our gaps in knowledge and identify what questions we even want to ask first, before we start asking a lot of anyone, of staff, of, the process, and even of ourselves, this is our first year, this is our first budget process. We don't know what we don't know, so my desire would be, let's figure out what we wanna figure out first. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You? What are your goals you'd like to figure out here for this, cause.
Well, actually, my goals are actually to talk about some bigger picture, how we fund all of the services in this community.
Okay. Statutory or other services, or both?
Others, because we fund statutory services through us,
Okay.
through our general fund.
Yeah.
And other funds, but I wanna discuss bigger picture, how we're funding all of our services. And what funding mechanisms we have available, what kind of strategy we wanna do, how does that set us up for mine closure? What have we taken on in the last years that it would be good for us to start doing some networking and policy creation that helps spread that load or reallocate the load of these services. Right now, it's kind of, if we were to zoom out and look at how the entire community is funding all of our things, whether it's IGAs between the city and county, just the city, just the county, only through property tax and grants, I think we should have a bigger plan to start alleviating our budget to make it more sustainable. And then as a community, come up with ways that we wanna fund the other things that we also wanna do. I have a couple ideas about that.
Okay. What about you, Matt?
Well, I'm curious to know what your ideas are specifically. I understand what you're saying, you've given a lot of thought to this. So, can we dial down on it a little bit?
Totally, yeah, okay.
Okay, let's start with
Is
your
that
stuff
okay?
then. So how do we fund other services, options, sustainability, looking ahead?
Yeah.
Reaching out, trying to bring more dollars here.
Yep.
Okay.
So right now, we have, the staff have put into our packets our statutory requirements. And they're not minimal, but they're kind of minimal compared to what we do.
Right.
And my impression is that the county has taken on a lot of the extra services that our community wants without actually increasing or diversifying our funding revenues to support those services except through the mill levy. We haven't increased sales tax. We haven't created any special districts. We haven't discussed increasing our accommodations tax. So, but then we also have these IGAs, like specifically for the animal and fire, which we share a lot of that load for what are not statutory requirements for us.
Right.
And, okay, and then there are other things going on in the community where I think that some of the requests that we got through our community request program, whatever, those work sessions that we had last week, where the community asked us for certain amounts of funding for various projects. Some of those could be bucketed into various categories, like health and safety or economic development. And what the city has done is created a special tax that goes directly to housing. And they are discussing and potentially dispersing that funding to the Regional Housing Authority so that all housing projects and requests for funding can go through that entity as opposed to going through the city. And the city doesn't have to allocate more funding to housing. They're like, we already have this special tax dedicated to it, so here, go to that bucket if you want that, as opposed to our general fund. I think we could be doing that with other things, like economic development. We used to send money to the EDC, and people could request money through the EDC because the county and city had already dispersed funds for economic development through them. That doesn't exist anymore. Right now we have our own department, but that's a very new department for us. And funding requests, I think, could be going through, for economic development, could be going through that department, and funding requests going through that department. So right now it just feels really dispersed, all of these funding requests and all of these priorities. And the burden is being put on the general fund, and the burden is being put on our property tax. I think that we could really look at it big picture as a whole community and say, okay, do we want a pool? Great. I'm gonna use the pool as an example.
Sure.
The pool, they went for a sales tax, which is not as, it doesn't produce as much money as they need to get it done, and it is not as reliable. Whereas if we actually created a rec tax, a recreation
Rec
district, we could be funding our rec department and subsidizing bowl and building a pool, like all of
Right.
those ideas in investing in a community field, building out the Huck Finn ice rink, fixing our Huck Finn skate park, like right now, all of those requests are going towards the general fund. And I think that we as a BOCC have an opportunity to say, okay, these are our statutory duties, this is how much that the statutory requirements stress our general fund. These are the things that we would like to see moving out of our general fund. Where are some homes where those could be? Community, do you really want these things? And if you want them badly enough, are you willing to help us find additional funding mechanisms for that?
Yeah,
And the
cause it'd
three-
be on the the onus would be on the voters to
Yeah.
make this happen.
And the three funding mechanisms that either are available to us now or could potentially be available to us are the accommodations increase, that has been increased to 6%. That already passed last year, so we could ask the voters if they wanna increase,
Yeah, that's an
Accommodations
option.
tax.
I think, yeah.
right? So that's an option. I know other people are already talking about potentially asking for the accommodations tax to be increased for things like childcare. Accommodations tax, special taxing districts, like a fire taxing district paired with childcare, paired with roads, like we can make the special taxing district whatever we want it to be. It could be a rec and fire district, it could be a rec fire childcare district. And then the third is the one that's being proposed to the state legislature, and that is the rec excise tax. So I just wanted to say that I think that we have options for diversifying our funding, and we could do real policy work at the state level to help get even more options available. All of these would have to go to the voters. But I just think that us trying to make this this budget work over and over again and smash everything we can into it is already becoming untenable and will become even more so in the future. And our reliance on the mine makes that even more tenuous. So I think that part of our mine closure conversation also needs to be us looking at what else, how we could be sharing the load of these costs. Do you have any questions, Matt? Did that answer your question about what our options are?
No, I like it. There should be a contingency plan if if it doesn't pass, and then also, you know, all these taxes add up.
Yep.
And people are gonna get leery, so there should be a contingency plan, or at least thought put into, or if it doesn't pass, then what do we do? And then you mentioned all these incremental tax increases. I think eventually, especially if this housing bubble pops and our valuation goes down in the next assessment period, and then we're, you know, gonna be constrained budget-wise that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think it's great, I think it's optimistic, but I think the reality is people are kinda like taxed up to here and they're just barely floating with all the other economic pressures, so I think the concept is great. Makes a lot of sense.
I think putting the power in the voters' hands is one of the best things we could do. I also think the writing is really clearly on the wall that Lake County cannot continue to operate these services at this level, moving into the future. And rather than see us or the next board have to be like, you know what, we can't do a rec department anymore. We're not obligated to do it.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to figure out how to, when we have the bandwidth for this, let the community know, like, hey, look, here's why our roads are garbage and why our buildings are falling apart and why, you know, we can't get a contingency fund together and our you know, if everything hits the fan, we've got a couple weeks worth of operating budget saved up instead of a couple months. And it's because for decades we've been doing all these things that we aren't statutorily obligated to do because we can and because it feels good, but the reality is, in today's climate, this is unsustainable. And I would really hate to have to start saying, you know what, we can't pitch in on the animal shelter anymore. Or what if we get to a point where we're like, we can't pitch in on the fire department anymore? So I think if we were able to spell that out to the community somehow very clearly and be honest and just talk to people straight up, you know, like this is where things are at, you know, and it's not doing anything we did wrong, it's not doing anything our predecessors did wrong intentionally or anyone, it's more of a generational passing the torch on, this is just how we've always done it, and looking into the future, this isn't gonna work. So we need to make some hard decisions now, and we're gonna put those decisions in you, the voters' hands. And if you say no, we'll keep trying to figure out how to make it happen, but just be aware that there's a very real possibility that at some point, Lake County's gonna have to focus on what Lake County needs to do, which is our statutory obligations and fixing our broken stuff.
I'll also offer that Matt, to your point, the incremental taxes, like just increasing taxes is not actually what I'm after. I think it has to be paired with also combining services between the city and the county to save money there, to build efficiency. It also has to be combined with, like if we can take some of the burden of, let's use fire as an example. If we can take some of the burden of fire off of our general fund or rec off of our general fund or airport off of our general fund, it also allows us to potentially reduce our mills. So right now, we're looking at So just providing all the services we've said we provide. Just breaking even, we have to increase our mills within our cap. And if we can relieve the general fund of some of that pressure, it keeps us from having to continue to increase our mills. Because eventually we're gonna hit that cap and then have to ask for more funding just to do what we're doing. So I think that it could have an opportunity to reduce burden.
We're treading water while looking at a tidal wave of inflation and everything else coming at us.
Yeah.
Like at some point, something's gotta give.
And it's not just us, that's why I'm saying that the city would also have to be part of this. People have been floating, like combining services for years, right? And I know we've tried some of them a little bit in the past, but it's kind of like you have to move everyone all at once for it to help the whole ecosystem. This is a systems-wide thing I'm proposing. It'd be great if the city could be on board with us to do it.
Well,
I think it's optimistic
It is.
to say that we're gonna create a fire district and an airport district and all these districts that would increase people's tax burden, but we promise we're gonna reduce the mill, where the next administration might be like, hey, look, we got all this room in the mill. What's keeping us from just going up to the top, so.
Well, we're gonna hit the mill and have to go over, like, no matter what, we're going to have to go to the community to ask for increased taxes. And the question is, where do we do that? Is it going to be in 10 years when this board asks to increase the mill? Or is it gonna be now to kind of safeguard some of these services that we've been providing for so long? And disperse that taxation into a different district? And to be clear, I'm not proposing lots of different districts. You can have combined districts to meet combined needs.
yeah,
So, and I don't know what we want, I think it's a bigger conversation. Fire is an easy one and rec is an easy one.
yeah,
But childcare is something that we haven't been asked to fund, no one is funding that, and it is a huge issue in this community, so childcare could also be in that district. And I don't think we should propose like all of them at once. I think it's the kind of thing we could phase, just like combining city and county services is a thing we could phase.
I'd like to see a combined building department,
Yeah,
law enforcement,
roads,
streets,
yeah,
road and bridge.
yeah,
I think that would save some money.
I think,
Easier said than done.
but we can start talking about it, right?
the thing that jumps out at me is having a little place in another state and having some close ties in yet another state and looking at what these people are paying in taxes. And then look at what we pay in taxes here. There's a pretty big difference. I love that about Colorado. I wanna preserve that to the best of our abilities. I also was kind of seeing the writing on the wall that something's gotta give here at some point, and we are just, the work that the staff is doing right now, behind the scenes, in these offices, in this building, 50 hours a week, trying to figure, 60 hours, 70 hours a week, some of them, trying to figure out how to,
Who needs?
who needs sleep? Trying to figure out how to balance this budget that we've been taking the reins over on, and what we've said no to already with the spending. It's unsustainable. There's just no way that another board's gonna come in here and do all of be as fiscally tight as we've already been this first year and continue that on. Something's gotta give at some point.
I
Whether
mean,
it's,
yeah, next year we're gonna get our asset management plan, and it's gonna show us
how,
like $1 billion in
and yeah,
maintenance.
there's gonna be, 70 years of deferred maintenance that we gotta catch up on.
Yeah, so we're gonna need to, even if the mine is good, let's say the mine is great, like, we're still gonna need to relieve the general fund to be able to even, entertain the idea of investing in our
Yeah.
assets.
And everybody wants to see our roads fixed, and that's on us. How are we gonna do it if we're trying to do all these other things that we aren't obligated to do. So I think there's a story there, I think there's a really good argument, not even argument, a really good point to bring forth to the public and let them know that, hey, the power's gonna be in your hands. Here's the story, power's in your hands, let's make a decision, you guys make a decision, tell us, we're gonna give you the options, let us know what you think.
And there are a lot of folks also already talking about what taxation measures could be brought to the ballot next year. And I think that we need to be part of that conversation, because we're not the only leaders in this community who deal with taxes and funding. So I think that in order for us to have like a concerted community-wide priority that goes to the voters, like we need to be in those rooms. Yeah.
I just wanna be really clear and sure that this is something we're gonna start working on to bring forward in 27. This is like, there's no way we can get this set up for next year.
No, I don't know, I'm bringing all this forward to be like, hey, maybe this is the strategy that we take on, and other people in this
Yeah.
community are already taking on a strategy that I think that we would want to implement. And kind of like what happened with the pool tax,
Yeah,
the pool tax ended up being like myopic and only serving one point. And other people asked to be part of that tax, and it
Yeah.
could have served many people and ideas. And so these conversations are already happening in the community. We should be at those conversations, because if they happen next year, how will that impact our ask? Or if they happen next year and they're just focused on childcare, how could we work with them to make it a rec in childcare or roads in childcare? Like how can we be part of the conversation to start this ball rolling, because it's not an all at once.
something we can start working on Q1 to get on the ballot for November, that will
Yeah.
come into effect for 27.
Yeah,
That would be, and that's moving at the blazing speed of local government, that's a fast
that's
timeline.
fast, yeah. And the more people in the room, the longer it takes, but also the more impactful our action can be
Yeah,
if all of the priorities are at the table at once.
okay. I think this is a super valuable budget conversation. It is looking ahead pretty far, but I also feel like what we've got to do to get our ducks in a row for 26 is already so stressed and strained that making any adjustments, changes to that, we're too late in the game for that right now.
Yeah, I'm not actually proposing a change to our 2026 budget.
Okay.
What I'm offering is that as we look at our 2026 budget, where are we seeing the gaps and the pressures that need relief? And what kind of a long-term strategy could we be creating with our whole community to relieve that before it bursts?
Yeah,
Like before we have to let go of the rec department, before
Right.
we have to say no to the fire department.
yeah,
Like, let's get ahead of ourselves if we can.
yeah. What would be a good communication strategy to like plant the seed?
Oh, okay, I have an idea for that too. So the leadership roundtable, I think, is a place where we could start.
Okay,
And I think if we all showed up to that, it would show that, like, this is a county priority, and we wanna be at the table, and we wanna be part of the conversations. And that's also where there's, what do you call it? Critical thinking, critical problem solving happening.
yeah. Well, it's a great,
And- Yeah, so the energy in that room is really excellent when it comes to problem solving. So bringing this to that room, I think, would be a good place to start. And from there, depending on where we see the priorities rising, from that, a comm strategy could be created.
Mhm.
And then also from our point, discussing our comms budget, which we thought was one thing.
Tom's outreach was,
We thought it was
One
one
other
thing this year, but then Candace informed us that that money didn't actually exist like, we also need to be putting,
In a lot of places.
Skeletons in the
Yeah.
closet.
we also need to be putting money towards our comms,
Yeah,
because in order to explain this to people, it takes some investment.
yeah, it does take some investment, and I feel like a lack of investment there has led to a lot of the local miscommunications, misunderstandings, and voids in stuff I really wish I could tell every single person in this community now that I've had time
Yeah,
in this building. Because I know what it's like to think that everything's being frivolously spent left and right, and that there's no rhyme or reason to it, and
I burned $100 in the trash can this morning.
Just for fun?
Yeah, cause I'm a county employee now,
Oh,
just frickin' burning money.
for the record, this is sarcasm. I don't want that to end up on Facebook.
Come to my office hours, you'll find out.
You know, if you think we're lining our pockets, go look at the tires on my truck right now.
I think it's a tough sell. I think
I know,
everybody's, like it's childcare, it's housing.
We can't have it all.
It's this, it's that.
We can't pay for it all, the county
That-
can't.
It's the schools, and the
Yeah.
schools just got a decent raise last year, so if I was gonna go to the ballot box and start voting on more tax increases, I would be very reluctant. Given the increase in property tax, increase in the county budget, so.
Well,
And as
I
far as
think it-
going to those meetings, like maybe after the first of the year, I might start attending, but for now, I'll lean on you to.
I will- I'm okay starting to show up to those, that doesn't add any burden to staff, that doesn't do anything other than just, if we can start reallocating our like weekly schedules to include more things that maybe aren't in this room. Like maybe they have to be posted if it's like, hey, we're all gonna go to a leadership roundtable, hey, we're gonna sit down with community coffee. Like I think those rooms might be a really powerful way for us to start checking off some of these community outreach and communication, seed planting kind of things. Like you're saying, I agree with that, and it's not us scheduling more work sessions to get people to come in here. I think if the three of us are getting out there,
yeah,
then we can have less to do that needs to happen in this room.
What do you think?
yeah, come join.
It also, I love Leadership Roundtable,
Me
and
too.
I love it when I'm able to attend, which hasn't been as much as I would have liked this first, part of the year, but as I've started to hand off hats that I've been wearing and finish up the budget in the next few weeks, I cannot wait to have that. That's really the place where you get to connect with people and really hear what they think and feel and just get outside of the normal crew that you hear your things from, because I think it's really important to put yourself in different places where you really can hear, what people are thinking. The community coffees, those are a great place. I think it's really important because it's a little different than asking people to come to us.
Yes,
And that's why I really love to do those things when we can, and hope to have a little more bandwidth after December to do that a little bit more, because that's what really helps this is what we should be focusing on.
Yep.
And for me, it's like, oh, are we not delivering a service? Great, like hearing that out in the community helps me kind of come back and be like, okay, well, we really need to work on, the roads, or hey, we need to really show up and be service minded and really polite to people, even if we're having a rough day. And I need to probably reiterate that with staff. So I love the thought that we would go out and be involved in those things, because that's where you get real feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, you get real feedback on Facebook too, but sometimes it's just not as conducive as like having a real face-to-face conversation with people. So I think those would be great places to understand what people want. I love the idea of we can't cover everything forever. But if the community gets to vote, it really gives them the option to say where they want their dollars
Yeah.
to be spent, like is rec the thing you're passionate about? Great, say it with your voting, if we are reducing our budget, we're gonna be asking for less from people in terms of property taxes, we're gonna provide the services, you know, and that's just an example, it could be whatever it is, the fire department, the animal shelter, the underwater basket weaving club, I don't care what it is. You know, we can really focus on the things we're supposed to provide and do them to the best of our ability and do them well. Instead of trying to be everything to everybody, which has just gotten harder and harder, and I do recognize the mine is gonna peter off at some point. And we're gonna need to have a plan to keep running things and rather than say, well, this is the year we gotta cut the thing, it gives us an off ramp to say, okay, how can we really actually maintain the things that are the most important to the people in our community? So, I don't know, I think I love the idea of being able to explore those options.
Matt, what does it look like when the three of us wanna go to a leadership roundtable or a city council meeting to start having these conversations? Do we have to post that if it's somebody else's event?
I mean, I think ideally you post it,
Okay.
especially if there's more than two, but you know, again, you're not discussing public business.
Yeah.
You're not really there to make decisions or anything, you're there to bounce ideas off folks and solicit input.
Yeah.
You know, to the extent you can post it would sort of be my recommendation, but you know, if you can't, if
Yeah.
someone shows up, I wouldn't stress about that either.
The
Okay,
leadership roundtables are the only things we're not posting. We're posting city council, we're posting
community coffee,
community coffee, so, yeah,
okay.
we can start posting the leadership roundtable. if
You
wanna
said
come.
you got the numbers of what we're spending on statutory versus other,
Not the numbers, just what is our statutory obligation, so
Okay.
you can cross-reference that with our budget.
with our total numbers,
It's in the
just extrapolate
packet.
the difference.
Yeah,
I could pull that number together though.
that would be
You
awesome.
don't do anything, we'll figure it out.
No,
Well, I mean,
do that,
that's,
I
we
can't
can
do
do
that.
that while we're working on the budget.
ask Will.
We're already working on the
Right.
budget, so it's fine.
You stayed up till 2 AM working the other night, don't do anything, we'll figure it out.
I won't do it again after this budget's
It can, and yeah, it can
So-
easily be a next year
The
thing,
re-
this
the
is
reason-
not a this year thing.
Sorry. The reason I asked that is cause it'd be really cool to pull up some, you know, come in with a little
Yeah,
easel, put a little infographic on there and say, hey, here's how we've been operating.
Mhm.
And you wanna know why stuff is falling apart and there's cracks in the slides at the playgrounds that have never been fixed and the skate park cement's crumbling and the, you know, the buildings are whatever, you know, there's all the stuff that we can't fix and we don't have nearly as much as we would like to see saved in the bank for contingency and, you know, X, Y, and Z, all of it. And here's why, here's the number, here's what we've been spending on things most counties don't spend on. I'd also like to show, here's how, out of 64 counties in Colorado, here's how many have paid for this, here's how many paid for that, here's how many use this as a funding mechanism, you know, like, to be able to show that like, you know, we're doing things a little backwards here and it's costing this community in ways that we aren't seeing every day. You might see them in your ball joints and alignments and tires on your car falling apart, but
yeah, it's a lot of communication campaigning.
yeah, you know, you're complaining about there never being enough law enforcement to keep speeders in check on some of our roads, or that there's, you know, we could put a little more into some of that if we didn't have to pay for, you know, all this fun stuff.
Candace, do you think in the future, this could be a part of our dashboards?
Yeah.
Where it's like you could filter it of statutory versus non-statutory?
Yeah, we would just have
Not
to
completely,
set that filter,
Yeah,
you know, to the different accounts that we want, or departments, I'd
Yeah.
say, to filter it that way, and then, yeah, it should be fine. What's nice is takes a while to set a dashboard up, but once it's set up, you just like refresh it and it pulls the data directly from the income statement.
someday that'd be cool to be able to just click on as part of this conversation.
Yeah.
That's not a this week project, to be clear.
We do that over Thanksgiving week?
Yeah,
Don't even
Brilliant,
joke
Matt,
about
thanks.
that.
You ready for us by Friday?
Yeah, well, yeah, you keep working, we'll get you up when we're back from Thanksgiving.
thanks you guys, that's what I wanted to talk about.
That's perfect.
I know it's ambitious, I know it's optimistic, but I really feel like it's part of the work we could be doing that would set people up for decades.
That is amazing, and that is a really huge component in like a direction that we need to start thinking, because you guys know I love to just crazy stress about stuff and think, looking at what just happened with our budget, what is happening with our budget, and trying and watching staff try and Tetris this all together in a way that it's balanced has been giving me serious anxiety. Like,
Yeah.
well, how are we ever gonna do anything? How are we gonna move forward? So, I know we will, but it's just like, what are some solutions? And we gotta put them all on the table, and that's a big possibility. I do think that people would be pretty receptive to some change in that direction. I think it's a great idea, Elsa, I think it's massive.
I think one of the things that feels most, Adam's not gonna love that I'm saying this, but you know, I served on the tourism panel for like 6 years. And that fund, all those dollars, we never had enough money to hire a staff person. And then we did. And then Tim Bergman decided that it would be great to create a department within the county and take on all of that cost of the whole staff. And now there are multiple staff in that department. And I remember having the conversation with Adam, maybe like 2023, when this happened. I was like, man, someday though, that will be that department might not be able to be funded. And then it's totally up to the people who are sitting at the BOCC table if they're gonna fund that department. And I personally would rather keep it separate so that it could be kind of safeguarded and just use the money that is appropriated to it.
Yeah,
I love the work that they've done. I love everything about our TED department, but it's non-statutory. Like, it's a huge cost that we've taken on in just the last 2 years. And just like the more we do that, I think the more it puts those services at risk.
yes.
And so part of this to me is about making sure we can actually safeguard these services before they have to be cut. And I think economic development is one of those things that I care deeply about. I think lots of people in this community care deeply about. We have not seen, we've seen stagnation for years now when it comes to our economic development and business advocacy. And much as I would want to take that on as, I want to champion that as a commissioner. And I feel like the way I can best champion economic development is to ask the voters if they would put aside different money to support that, as opposed to us continuing to try to fund that as a government. And that's not, it doesn't feel appropriate for this building and this organization to be directing and funding economic development unless it is through policy. So it's just an example of one of the things that I care deeply about, and I think that other people in this community would resonate with their dollars towards economic development. It's not just rec or fire or childcare.
It's a great Q1 item. I have another one of those, which would kind of go in line with this, would be the assets divestments. What do we have that we don't need? We obviously need to get an asset management plan, at least to some degree sorted, but I'm wondering if there's stuff we can identify right off the bat that we're like, we don't need this. You know,
Yeah.
this is a burden, this is a burden on us holding on something that's not being used and is costing us, or it could be something that,
It's really valuable, we wanna hold on to,
Mm-hmm,
we just
yes.
don't know.
or we could
Yeah.
be getting it back onto the tax roll and leveraging it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, so, yeah, like, figuring out, we could identify some probably pretty big things that we should at least discuss. What are we doing with this? Why do we wanna hold on to it, or do we not, you know? There's, yeah, so,
yeah, I love that, Andy.
that's
Q1.
another Q1 conversation. For right now, we gotta take a hard look at, we're getting so close to getting this thing dialed, but we keep finding more little errors left and right that are still putting us, it's like we're 2 steps forward, 1 step back
Not
situation.
really errors,
Huh?
not really errors, it just sometimes it takes a moment to get information, like, and
Well,
also a budget's
okay.
your best estimate of what you
Let's say the
assume will happen.
printer ink didn't quite print right on a page and a 0 got dropped off of something. And we found, okay, so we still need a little bit of, we still gotta get across the finish line and we need to
Yeah.
cut some more.
I have suggestions tomorrow.
Okay,
I do, like, I can sit down with Will and we can cut whatever. With finance, sorry, with Will. But also there are some places where it's like, hey, there are some options about what we cut back on and really wanna give you guys the opportunity to say, this is what we would wanna see. So we can make those final decisions, cause there's a few different options for places we can say, hey, this seems like a lot, maybe we can write it in, or, we had a few quotes for like our workers' comp came back much higher than we had anticipated, or we found out that some of the homes we're building will need to be insured for a while until they're sold, you know, there's some
but
things
these aren't
like
things
that.
we can cut out, these are more things
Yeah.
that we have to pay
We
that
have
we
to
need
do.
to find.
So I'm
But
gonna,
she's saying it's not
Yeah.
an error, it's just information we
just
didn't
information.
have.
Okay, yeah,
And your budget will change throughout the year, that's why you have supplementals, you just
True.
do the best absolute job you can and take it from there.
yeah,
But that's what tomorrow we really wanna talk about, different mill scenarios. We wanna talk about, just some decisions you guys have to make. Give us guidance on, you know, so we can continue doing the work to get everything balanced, so that's the goal, is to have a balanced budget. And start to, after we get this balanced budget done, start to really, you know, make sure that we feel really confident in the numbers that we do have for, you know, our fund balances, because we did have to do 2 audits at once. And we wanna make sure we're using audited fund balances and make sure, you know, that we start to have a 5-year outlook for, okay, these are the trends we've seen for the last years, what are we gonna see in the next 5? And really start to have a more complete budget picture and planning picture. You can't really plan for what you aren't at least projecting out, knowing that crazy things can happen and DHS might not be funded, you know, at the drop of a hat, or whatever the new surprise is. You know, those things are outliers, COVID's an outlier, but you know, you can start to have that 5-year picture of, okay, this is what we think we can plan for, and start to have a clearer picture rather than just being reactionary, and we're getting there.
yeah.
That feels good.
I think for right now, being honest with, do you think it's prudent right now to be honest with partners about what we can do for this budget versus what we've been doing traditionally? And while we're in this space of like, I think people are starting to get the picture of like, these guys are really trying to cut back on everything. Should we be having these conversations with community partners right now about like, hey, this year's gonna look a little different, we gotta cut things back, you know, like, it's not gonna look the same. We wanna help, we still wanna do something, but we gotta take like 50% off of what we've been doing.
Is there anywhere in the budget where we've done that? It feels like pretty not significant changes to services.
No, we haven't changed services really much for this next year. I
Yeah.
think we need just a clean budget where we look to what we spent the last 2 years before we created that budget.
Exactly. The only thing that I've heard us talk about where there could be a change in services is with the summit stage. And we haven't renegotiated a new IGA, so we don't even know what that would be yet.
we've implied some pretty hard no's.
Where? To change in services.
Oh. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around like how that fits with like what we're just giving to like nonprofits or like the animal shelter or like when I think of change in services, I think of like what have we been doing to cut back on spending here in this building? And I think if we look at that picture as a whole, I think versus what we were gonna be doing when we first got in here versus where we're at now, I think we've cut back like 17-ish, somewhere in the, $17 million or something like that. So I think we're doing a lot to cut back without cutting the services that, people are depending on from us.
It's mostly capital investments that we've done the trimming.
Yeah.
And the change in donations or contributions to nonprofits, I think the difference up there has been the ARPA dollars that are no longer available. So we're going back to like a pre-COVID number as opposed to being the pass-through for ARPA dollars to some of our community partners, which I think has been really clear. We're talking about general fund, not ARPA dollars anymore. Even though I understand that on our side, the ARPA dollars are complicated. I'm not talking about that.
Cool, when do we start?
This next month.
Okay.
Leadership Roundtable is next month.
Well, I think we should combine the dream of increasing revenue with the reality of cutting back, figuring out where we can cut staff,
I would feel a whole lot confident in any
combine
government.
departments, combine city and county services, see what, if we could sell that to the public, like, if we combine road and bridge, we're gonna be able to pay for 2 more blocks a year.
Mm-hmm.
All the management and middle management in both the city and the county, I think just the building department alone, so.
Maybe that's where we could start.
I would be all for that. And
Yeah.
cutting, we could save 2 positions by combining the building departments. And I don't know how that would work tax-wise and how open they would be to it, especially considering.
We need to be very careful about how we talk about that until we have a hard sit down with our partners across the street
Yeah.
and talk about that. It would be really damaging, I think, to start talking about that on our end until we really hammer some things out with those guys across the street in a positive way, like just not like, I don't wanna use the word hammer, cause that sounds abrasive and rough, but, until we really find a way to dance around some of these sticking points and, pain points that have been traditional roadblocks to this conversation. So I wanna start saying that, I wanna shout it from the rooftops, but, cause we have been since we've been running, but we need them on board, we need their support, and full collaboration, cooperation, communication.
Maybe that's a Q1 joint work session where we could really start talking about it with real numbers and ask staff for contributions about and I know proposals have been created in the past, feasibility studies have been done for some of those combinations, like, let's use some of those and see what real life it could look like.
Agenda. Let's get on their agenda at
Let's do a joint work session.
city council meeting.
I think doing a joint work session would be more valuable than getting onto their agenda, so that we don't have this like time crunch to move through their agenda. It's just a process thing, but yeah, let's get with them and start talking about it.
Cause their whole budget is, there's hardly any statutory obligations, is that correct? It's all-
Yeah. Fire,
Fire's not a statutory obligation.
For the city,
No,
oh, I thought theirs was, okay, sorry.
they
yeah,
have city police.
even that's not a statutory obligation.
Really? LPD's not,
We could really just, it's not statutory law enforcement, their law enforcement isn't statutory.
I think we'd need a lot of clarity on the temperature amongst city council and their leadership staff of how they feel what the pathway to these goals looks like before, we start bringing that to the leadership roundtables or things like that. I don't think we should avoid saying we'd love to work with these guys to figure out how to make this happen because it would save,
Yeah,
I would have a lot more faith in any government entity that was displaying and showing how they were actually cutting back on spending and being more responsible with dollars. And be more likely to wanna help support with new possibility of new districts or things like that if I knew, or if I had some confidence that my tax dollars were being spent and used responsibly and appropriately.
Andy, I don't wanna cut you short, but I just wanna respect your final today.
I meant to say 10 minutes ago, I gotta leave in a few minutes here, guys.
You're gonna cry.
Buenas suertes.
Buenas suertes.
There you go.
Yeah,
You too, Sandra. Good luck to you.
Yes, will you sign that real quick before you run out?
Okay, yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. Just kidding.
Oh yeah, Sandra, you have to go too.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
No, it's great, it's
Good
fun,
luck.
I'm excited for this. Okay. Signed, oh. Yes, all of you guys, oh my god.
We'll get it.
Okay.
You go
Go
talk
crush
to
it.
Lauren and
Muy inteligente at Espanol.
Wow.
I don't
We
make fun of my
discussed,
accents.
wow, we discussed maybe collaborating on
Chef's
a
kiss.
different day so people can.
sorry, Candace, what did you say?
We discussed collaborating on a different day, so
Just
all
let it-
could join in the future.
Oh, you're welcome.
Love it.
Alright,
Andy, you wanna end it?
Oh, yes, it is 12:56 PM. We'll conclude this work session, for Lake County Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you staff, thank you commissioners.
good luck,
I'll see you up there in a little bit.
no cheating.